back to the future. Ever wish you could go back to the past to improve your future? No? Those of you that said no, I cannot relate to you. That means you probably lived the past that I cannot relate to, and I've probably lived the past you cannot relate to. Back to the future. Good news. God has made way in His kingdom for us to do just that. And we're gonna look at that a little bit today, go into this new year, and see how we can go back and change our future. Good idea? Did you guys have a good Christmas? Good Christmas. It was relaxing, and once all the work here was done, and it was just a busy time as usual here, and actually prior to today, which I see I'm not saying that everyone that's missing is home with a hangover. I'm not saying that, but they're somewhere experiencing something. They're not here experiencing this, is all I know. And but through Christmas, I really want to say thank you to you for just being so faithful through the whole month of December with everything that was going on and all the busyness. And you see, Christmas play was incredible, just wonderful, and we were at capacity for the Christmas play. I mean, I don't know if we've ever had more people in this building. I may have said that last Christmas too, I don't know, but kids and all, I mean, we were almost at capacity in this building. And there's 500 seats in the sanctuary, and all these seats were not filled, but if you took the kids that was in the play and put them in the seats and went back in child care and brought all them and put in here, I'm telling you, there would not have been one single empty purple chair in this building. It was awesome. And I want to apologize to some of you last week. I think did we run out last week? I know I could tell you guys were trying to shelter me from something back there, like you didn't want me to feel bad or something, but I could see there was a little meeting going on back there. And the reason I called my family here is because I was going to share a cup with them because I suspected there were no cups left. Well, that's my bad. So we just had a much better turnout last Sunday for Christmas than what I was expecting. And I was expecting, I thought if we had 200 people come out for Christmas, we were going to do good. But kids and all, we were more like 300 people. And for Christmas Sunday, I just want to tell you, that touched my heart. You have no idea how much that was throwing me a stake coming into this new year. I personally, every once in a while, need to see that kind of commitment because it kind of eggs me on a little bit. So thank you guys very much. And I know most of you were up late last night and you probably didn't come in with a whole lot of energy today. And I'll give you another chance next Sunday, okay? We held back on you today, okay? But next Sunday we're going to rock. Whether you like it or not. That's a good thing about being the pastor. I get to say, let's do this music today. And I get to tell the sound man, turn it up! Anyway, you guys sure you're awake? Okay. All right. Had some good times with my daughter this Christmas. Had some of those spontaneous times that were not planned, and had some times that were very planned. Had memories that were made that I did not see coming till it was too late, and had some memories that were made that were very, very planned out. Every once in a while, you need to keep a ledger of the crazy things your kids do, because you don't want to forget. You need to keep a book on the crazy things you do. I'll never forget, my daughter when she was 3, shoving the M&Ms up her nose and just having to get the tweezers and dig them out. And of course, the weed eater incident will always go down in Catron family history. So one night this past week, she went up to take a bath and she came downstairs to get on my lap like she always does. She does every single night before she goes to bed. We have a little daddy-daughter time, and she came and crawled up on my lap. She had her PJs on, her hair was wet, she just got out of the bathtub, and she smelled so good. And she got up on my lap and I said, baby, you smell so good. She said, it's body spray. And I said, it smells really good. And 30 seconds later, She says, Daddy, my face is starting to burn. I said, what's wrong? She said, it's the body spray. It's burning. And I said, well, go tell Mommy. And she jumped off my lap. She went there, and she's gone for a while, and she comes back, and I see her face is all red where she's been scrubbed down, and she's sniffing, she's snotting. And I said, what's wrong? She said, it wasn't body spray. I said, well, what was it? She said, it was bathroom deodorizer. And she had just hosed herself down. I'm so glad when we become adults we don't do dumb things anymore, aren't you? Didn't plan that moment. I'll probably never forget that moment. It's a good moment once it was over and we saw we didn't have to go to the ER this time. The moment didn't produce anything. It produced a nice memory. It didn't produce anything more than that, though. Just produced a memory, but didn't produce any kind of fruit. Didn't increase our relationship in any way. Didn't make her a better person, maybe a smarter person. Didn't really bring increase into my life outside of a little chuckle. But we had some days that were very different from that moment that was planned out. In the last couple of Fridays, I've just said, you know what, while you're out of school, we're telling the world goodbye, and we're getting in the car, and we're leaving, and we're going places, and we're going to have some fun. And those days have ended up being more than what I even planned, and getting home even later than I planned, and doing things that we hadn't even thought about till we got into it, and then we started making it up as we went, and just really, really good times. Times that I told my wife Friday night, I said, one of the reasons that I enjoy Daddy-Daughter Days so much is because when it's just her and I'm her whole world. When it's just me and her, she holds my hand everywhere we go. She's always having these rich conversations with me. She doesn't goof off. She's not distracted. I'm never having to scream at her. It's just, but when there's other people around, you know how it is. When there's other people around and your kid, What I told last night, I told him, I said, it seems like all I ever do when we're at somebody's house is scream at you. It seems like that's all I ever get done. But when it's just her and I, it's a completely different world. And it's so rich, and I just enjoy it. And those are the moments that is preparing for our future. Those days when she begins to go through adolescence and through the teenage years, and she doesn't know how to handle life. She doesn't have solutions to her problems, and she's going through confused seasons. These are the days now that's going to prepare for those days when she can sit down and her and I can talk and have heart-to-hearts, and she will trust me, and she will know that I'm not going to judge her or throw her away, that she will know she can come talk to me about anything. And even prior to that, I plan on spending so much time with her that I hope to pour foundational things in her that will be deterrents later on when she gets older. That she can avoid going through a few things. They're rich times. Seasons of spontaneity, seasons where didn't plan it, but it was good, it was a memory, didn't really produce anything though. And seasons of our life that are very intentional, very planned, and usually produce fruit. And I've thought about that this week, and I've thought there's the compilation of our life right there. Our life is a compilation of the planned and the unplanned. The unplanned are those times where we're not trying to make anything happen, we're not trying to achieve goals, we're just sitting in the lazy boy, or we're just driving down the road, or whatever. Something happens, and one of those days you go to the mailbox, get the mail, and there's that little unexpected surprise in there. It just kind of brightens up your day, and just like, yeah, I didn't see that coming. Well, that's a nice surprise. And those things happen in life. You just kind of sit and you wait. You wait for those things to happen. What's going to happen next? And you wait to see what's going to happen. And then there's that part of life that is structured and planned and intentional and deliberate. That part of our life where we have dreams and we have vision and we have goals and we are inserting strategies into our life. Our life is a compilation of those two things. In the story of Israel in the Bible, we see two very clear, distinct pictures of this compilation. This world and this world. This world where things just kind of fall out of the sky. You weren't expecting it, just there it is, and you're not doing anything but just sitting in a holding pattern and waiting. And the seasons over here where you are being very intentional and deliberate with life. The season where we see that mankind has the ability just to sit and wait and see what happens was the Moses generation. The Moses generation got up every single day to see what was going to fall out of the sky. What will happen next? There's no great stories of anything they did. There's only great stories of the things that God did. The whole story of Moses is a testimony to God. God's kindness, God's mercy, God's ability to provide, God's power on display in the form of many miracles in the earth. It's not the story of man doing anything but just sitting in a holding pattern and waiting. What's going to show up in the mailbox? Who's going to show up and surprise me and make my life better today? Who's going to provide for me today? Where's it going to come from today? It's a slice of life that to the untrained eye might seem like a great testimony. Let me tell you what God did today, man. Manna fell out of the sky. Didn't have to work. Didn't have to go Krogering. It just fell out of the sky. Didn't have to go buy bottled water today. Went up to the rock, started gushing out. God won my victories today. God guarded me today. God parted the waters today. It's the testimony of God, but it's really not much of a testimony for man. To the untrained eye, especially coming out of a church generation that was not preaching as much truth as this generation is beginning to preach, it would seem like that's a good testimony. How God provides and protects and just kind of does everything for His kids. While they wandered around in circles with no plans for life, we have to remember how the story ends when man is just kind of waiting on God to show up and do stuff. They died in the desert. The other slice of life is the Joshua generation. The Joshua generation is not the testimony of God, it's the testimony of man empowered by God. Very different. It's not the story of God having to drop things out of the sky to sustain humanity. It's the story of humanity accepting the very power and ability of God in human form, putting it on display, and now man is doing the miracles. Man is winning the victories. Ironically, while the world has many long words for all kinds of psychosomatic syndromes that we go through, in other words, things that we operate in without really thinking, it just becomes ingrained and even innate at some point in our flesh. I back up as a pastor and I put two new titles for these two syndromes of life. It's the Moses syndrome and the Joshua syndrome. The Moses syndrome is when people fall into this place of just sitting and waiting on life to come their way and to make it good. What's going to show up in the mailbox today? What's going to fall out of the sky today? What's God going to come and fix and make better in my life today? And then we stand and we give a testimony and say, let me tell you what God did for me today. And it's a wonderful testimony when you're about 3 years old in the faith. I tend to think, since I am made in the nature of God, that I reflect exactly as a father the way God views His children. How many of you guys are dads here today? And moms, a parent. Doesn't matter, mom or dad, you're a parent. How many of you guys, when you're sitting around, and there may be a few hands that could come up, but consider this your little spanking if you raise your hand to this first question. In fact, you probably won't raise your hand now. How many of you guys, when you're sitting around with all your friends and stuff at work or wherever you're at with a bunch of people at church or whatever, and you begin to talk about something and you go into brag mode, how many of you guys would say your bragatory modes? Write that one down. Somebody go on Wikipedia and put that on there for me. How many of you guys, when you go into your bragatory modes with other people, are sitting there bragging about, well, let me tell you what I did, and I did this, and then I did that, and then I did that. And how many of you guys would say that, no, you do go in bragatory mode, but it's pretty much just talking about your kids? How many of you guys have even accepted the fact that most of the people around you, even though they're not saying it, are sick of you bragging on your kids? How many of you guys are aware that every single one of you are completely convinced that your kid is the smartest kid on the planet? And you tell stories to confirm it. Your grandkids, the smartest kids. Let me tell you what my grandkid did this week. Well, you're bragging. You're bragging on what you're... Let me tell you, I have people every once in a while that have told me, you need to stop talking about Hannah so much. I'm sorry, I'm like my daddy. So I'm putting myself in the Big Daddy's shoes, and I'm thinking, okay, God, do you sit around in the heavenly realms and do you brag on your great power and your great exploits and your great adventures? And God's like, well, you've got my testimony. You tell me, who did I write about? So you wrote about your kids. This kid did that, and this kid did this, and he's bragging on what his kids did. He has two sons, one's Moses and one's Joshua, and he loves them both equally. But he's not equally pleased with both of their lives. He loves Moses, but Moses has fallen into a mindset, a hold pattern, a circling in the wilderness pattern where he's just waiting on God to always show up and do something. The other son is Joshua. Joshua, from a very young age, is a very determined man. And when other people says, you can't do that, you just got to wait on God, Joshua's like, no, we can do this. Joshua understood something that we should never have to continually keep saying and prefacing our statements with, well, we know it's the power of God, but you can do this. And it's the power of God. We know that. I'm talking to the body of Christ today. Joshua was at a place where he didn't even felt like he had to explain, well, through the power of God, we can do this. God will help us. God will back. It was a given to him. He understood it was the power of God in him. He just understood all things are possible if you'll just believe. When the naysayers showed up and said, we can't do this, and he would get a confused look on his face. It's like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? We can't do that. Of course we can do this. 10 spies say we can't take the land. We're grasshoppers. We just got to sit here and wait on manna to fall out of the sky. We got to wait and see what comes in the mailbox tomorrow. We got to wait on somebody else to come and make our life better. Joshua's like, no. It's a Moses syndrome that I would also call a Grasshopper Syndrome, that I would also call a welfare mindset. Just sit and wait. And again, to the untrained eye, it seems right. Let's just wait upon the Lord here, because we blanket that term over many things we should not. God makes abundantly clear in His Word that God has built man and built into His systems the ability to see, have vision, dreams, to create, to step into things that have no form and bring form, to step into things that are dysfunctional and bring function, to step into things that are unfruitful and bring fruitfulness. He has created man to have dreams, to dream of possibilities. He's created His children to take things that the world would say it's unimaginable, and they would say, oh no, it's imaginable. I can truly imagine this. People that has vision and says, I can see it. Where? I don't see it. No, I see it. I can see it in here. Because until you can see it in here, no one will see it out there. God has created and put in motion an automatic nature for man to be filled with gifts, abilities, talents, problem-solving gift sets, creation ideas, and to make a world for himself through the power of God that's in him. And God has put in motion for man to stay in motion from the day he is born to the day he dies, for his life to be a life of progress, increase, fruitfulness, new adventures, new discoveries. God did not create us to sit and wait. God created us to change. God created us to live this day with everything that's in it, and when the day ends, to turn around and kiss it goodbye and step into tomorrow with fresh vision. I like this passage in Isaiah 43. I bet you it's going to be preached a lot in America today and around the world. It's in Isaiah 43. It says, this is God speaking through the prophet Isaiah. It says, forget the former things. Do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the desert and streams in the wasteland. And this it becomes a theme all through Isaiah's writing. Multiple times God through Isaiah begins to prepare the people, and God says, I'm doing a new thing. I want to do something new in your life. Forget yesterday. Let it go. Forget it. It was good, it was bad, whatever. Let it go. If it was bad and you're holding scars, let it go. If it was good and you built a monument, let it go. Yesterday was yesterday. Move on today. And God is saying, I want to do something new, something fresh in your life. The context in this story was with Israel. And God was trying to say to Israel, look, I know we've had problems in the past. You and I have not been clicking. You've been worshiping idols. You have been straying away from me. You have been in rebellion. And what God was saying, and He didn't have to, it was just a picture of His mercy and His love. He was saying, look, you guys have been messed up in your yesterdays. Messed up. You made a lot of mistakes. Forget it. Let it go. He's saying, I want to do something new and fresh in your life. And He says, do you not perceive that? He says, can you not see that? Heaven was here for most of the month of December at Cornerstone Family Church in this room. Do you not perceive it yet? Have you been listening? Have you been hearing what's being said from this pulpit as we went into a John the Baptist mode of preparation for a fresh move of God? Has it begun to stir you yet? Has it been just like many other sermons where you hear it's like, oh, that was good in the moment, and then go back out there in life and show up the next Sunday, it's like, now, where were we again? Are you beginning to perceive God wants to do something fresh in us? God wants to do something fresh in you. He says, look, our yesterdays, I know it doesn't look real good. You've rebelled against me. You've been disobedient. You've rejected me. Let it go. I'm willing to let it go. I mean, you guys are aware that all your yesterdays, God let go 2,000 years ago. 2,000 years ago, God let it go on His end. God's not giving Himself a pep talk here. He's giving us a pep talk. He's saying, let it go. Let it go. Let it go. Let it go. Throw it off. Get rid of it. I want to change some stuff in your life. It's the message of movement all through the Bible. The message of change. Do you notice even when Jesus, God in flesh, shows up, you notice He's just always changing stuff. His first miracle, He's changing water into wine. Why is that the first miracle? What's God trying to say? I know your life has been bland and tasteless. It sustained you. It's kept you alive. But let's face it, there ain't that many people that really has a party when they're drinking water. Hear what I'm saying? It sustains you. It keeps you alive. It does what it needs to do. No one really drinks a bottle of water and just gets like, man, life is good. Now, I'm not advocating the consumption of alcohol on any level this morning. Please understand that. But you've got to understand the reality of this story also. A story where people were drinking and people were getting real happy and they were enjoying the party and they were celebrating. The wedding feast was supposed to be the picture of life in Hebrew culture. There is not a moment in time where there's more celebration, more fun, more life than at a wedding feast. And God shows up and He says, you know what? We're going to take this thing that's bogging down, this thing where you're running out of supply, this thing that's just going nowhere fast, and we're going to take something that's really bland and not that exciting like water, and I'm going to show you what I can do if you'll let me change some things in your life. He didn't just change the water into wine, He changed the water into what they said was the best wine they'd ever had. What's God trying to say? It's like, look, I can take something that's just bland and tasteless, and all you're doing is existing and surviving, and I can change that thing into life and life abundant. It'll be better than life. I can do this for you. But it will require change. We will have to change some things in your life. You're going to have to let some things go. We're going to have to change your world. Now, you guys have found that change is not the easiest thing to do in life. Change is hard. It's hard. Look at Hebrews 12:1, familiar passage. Passage talking about change and the journey with God and running our race. The writer says, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. How many of you guys here are runners or used to be runners? I know Mark and Erica, and there's a bunch of y'all in here running now, aren't you? I'm joining you this year, by the way. I mean, later on in the year. I got to get some ducks in a row first, namely cardiovascular. That's my big duck that's out of the row right now. That's how you get it in a row. So if you guys are runners, how many ever ran cross country in high school? Mark, you did, didn't you? You didn't run, but you know what cross country running is. How many ever ran cross country in high school? Okay, several of you, good. I ran cross country in high school, and the view changed by the second. Every second, the view was changing. Did you notice that? Okay, let me tell you, in the writer of Hebrews, which was probably Paul's day, he wasn't living in Rome at this time. He was not part of what was going on there in the Roman cathedral of sports. And when he's playing off running a race, he ain't talking about running around a circle. He ain't talking about getting on a track and just keep going round and round with the same old view. That's the picture of the wilderness in the Moses generation. That ain't what he's talking about. He's talking about a road race where the view changes every split second. The view is constantly changing. And so he's saying in context, you're going to have to throw off the things that is keeping you from running the race because it's keeping you from advancing into your change. God has designed a progressive change for your life, and there's things that are holding you back. How many here has ever tried to run a race with a 100-pound bag of horse and mule feed on your back? Nobody? Andre has. I knew he had. I knew he had. Just to see if he could. You'd probably still outrun me. Hard to do, wouldn't you say? Probably can't run real fast. Probably get tired real quick. Probably be ready to throw the towel in pretty fast. So throw off the things that are hindering you and holding you back from running this race and progressing into the seasons of change that I want for your life. I've noticed in going on 17 years of pastoring, going on 30 years of ministry, we, as human beings, really struggle with this concept of change. We so struggle with it that we make intentional choices to stay where we're at in our hurt and in our pain, and even in very unpleasant situations of life, because it's easier to stay in that than to change. How many of you guys are familiar with battered wife syndrome? Husband's just beating the heck out of a wife, and she stays there with him, and it's like, why are you staying with him? Well, because it's easier to stay there and get beat up every day than to go out and start your life fresh. There's a security even in that, because we find security in things that do not change. By very definition, security means I know where the walls are, I know what surrounds me, I know where everything's at, I'm secure in this environment. But if you take the walls away from me, now I'm insecure, and where's the boundaries out there, and where's this thing going? And it's incredible to me as I've watched people turn hurt into security blankets, grief into security blankets. People that God wants to heal so that they can move on and progress into the changes that God has designed for their life. But they won't let go of the things that is holding them back and hindering them. Intentionally, on purpose, holding on to pain, holding on to regrets, holding on to sad seasons of life, holding on to heartache, holding on to failures. Very difficult, it seems, for we humans to move on. And it's not just an American thing. It's not just a this generation thing. It evidently was a that generation thing in that culture also. The writer's saying, come on. Another time Paul is talking about the race, and he says, you were running the race so good, and now you've stopped. What happened? He's saying, you were going pretty good, and then what happened to you? It's just human nature that we let things hold us back. We're afraid of change, even though we want change and we know it needs to change, and change has got to be better than this. But why do we so kick and fight against change? It's hard to throw off the things that hinder us. The Bible's full of stories of individuals and people where God is showing us, here's the things that are hindering you, here's the things that are holding you back. I was thinking about Peter this week. Peter, he's getting ready to do something he's never done before. You guys know that's what God wants for your life, right? Not just a repetition. Remember the Moses generation? Round and round she goes in circles. Where she stops, somebody knows, in death. It's not God's design for life. It's progression. It's change. It's adventure. It's journey. It's a race. It's doing things you've never done before. Going places you've never been. Tapping into a potential and power that you never realized you had. Overcoming things you never knew you could overcome. I was thinking about Peter. And there he is sitting in the boat. And walking across the water comes Jesus. And he sees him and he knows it's him. And, I'm thinking in his flesh he's got to be at least a little bit freaked out by this. I mean, I don't know how calm you can watch another human being walk on the water. It's just like, hey, cool, you're walking on water, man, yeah. I'm thinking every sensory in my emotions is just lighting up, man. I'm not going to know how to process that, but Peter processes and says, I know that's you, Lord. I'm sure that's you. I think that's you. Lord, is that you? Lord, if that's you, bid me to come out of this boat and come to you. He says, yeah, get out of the boat. Get out of the boat and come to me. It's the cry of God for 6,000 years to humanity. Get out of the boat. You know what a boat is, right? It's a floating box. Get out of the box and come to me. I want to show you there's some stuff you can do, some places you can go that you didn't know. But it's going to require you stepping out. Peter gets out and he starts doing it. He starts doing something he's never done before. And it's pretty incredible. It's quite amazing. But then the storm begins to kick up a little bit more. He gets his eyes on the waves, and he gets his eyes on what the wind is doing, and he begins to sink, and suddenly there's your picture of life right there, just sinking in the storm. But he started out doing something he'd never done before. I thought about what a slice of life. How often we get out of the boat, God says, man, come on, I want to show you something new in your life. I want to do a new thing in you. Do you not perceive it before it even springs up? Come on, let's do this thing. And we get out and say, yes, and we get out. And then the storm hits, because the storm is going to hit. And as soon as the storm hits, we start sinking now. It's not just a sinking in the natural, it's a sinking in the very soul of man, where we just begin to sink inside. But we started. we started and the storms kicked up. I like this collection of pictures of humanity found in Luke chapter 9. This is when a bunch of people said, Lord, we want to follow you. We want to go the places you're going. We want to walk with you. We want to know with you. You're going and doing some things that we've never thought about, but we want to do those things too. And it would require a radical shift in these people's agenda. And they've asked. And Jesus begins to respond in Luke chapter 9, verse 57. He says, as they were walking along the road, a man said to him, I will follow you wherever you go. And Jesus replied, foxes have holes and birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head. And what Jesus is acknowledging right up front to this man, he says, I want to follow you. I want to step out of the boat. I want to step out of this life. I want to step out of this box that I've been living in. There's places I need to go. There's things I need to do. I know there's more to life than what I've been doing. I want to follow you. I want to see where you can take my life. And Jesus responds to what he probably knows is not just that man's inner concern, but would be many people's inner concern. He says, now you know, before you do this, you're getting ready to step out of the box, right? There's not going to be the same security systems you had in the box. Foxes have holes, birds have nests. I want you to know, if you step out and you follow me, there's going to be some uncertainty. You're not going to always know what's happening from minute to minute. It's going to be good. Oh, you won't get bored. You're going to have the time of your life. But I'm telling you, you're not going to be living in that little box that you used to live in anymore. So I read this, I realize that there's another stumbling block, another hindrance to people's lives. They want change. They want the new of God in their life. They know God has planned more than this. They know that. But to step out into it, what does it all mean? Where is it going? Where's the walls around this thing? Jesus continues in the story as he responds to other human concerns here in verse 59 of Luke 9. Then he said to another man, follow me. But the man replied, Lord, first let me go and bury my father. I think it's safe to say that I could throw out a 30 or 40% number. Who knows? I just can tell you it's a pretty large number of people that as a pastor that I meet, know, get to know, that just can't move on in life because of grief. This guy, Jesus is saying, come on, follow me. I got places for you to go. I got things for you to do. Come on, follow me. I've got a plan for your life. He says, yes, Lord, and I want that. But first, let me go bury my father. Now, I want you to know this could be a very cold picture here because we say, well, come on, Jesus, give the guy a break. I mean, Lord, let him go take care of this need. Of course, we understand with God there's more to the story than just that. It's all about what's going on in the heart of man. It's the picture of someone that says, I want to move on with my life. I need to move on with my life. I know you've got big plans for my life. But I can't follow you. I can't step out of the box. I can't pursue this fresh journey in my life because I got this thing in my life right now. It's hard stuff. It's hard stuff. There's not a person in this room that can't relate to grief and loss. But God wants to be our comforter so we can move on. Look at this next verse. Same story. Still another said, I will follow you, Lord. See, this first guy is saying, well, I can't right now because I got this other thing to take care of. This guy says, well, I'll follow you, Lord. Oh, but first, let me go back and say goodbye to my family. Now we're going to take the percentages up incredibly high to more like 70 or 80% of people that I have known that is struggling to move on in life. And when I get to know them and try to figure out, why can't you move on? Why can't you break out? Why can't you just, why won't you step out and let God do new, fresh things in you? A high percentage of the time, it's always something to do with family. Family. Well, I can't because this is going on in my family. I don't know how to say goodbye to my family and do this. I can't go do the new things God has for me because I'm too busy taking care of needs in my own family. I'm not talking about, by the way, the things that God expects you to take care of in your family. Now, I'm not saying this is a story of someone saying, well, Lord, I've got to go home and feed my babies before I can come follow you. Well, forget your babies. You put your hand to the plow and you look back, you're not worthy to follow me. Forget your babies. Who do you love more, your babies or me? That's not what's going on here. There's always a story behind the story with God. It's the story of a man who represents many human beings who say, I can't move on to the new things God has for me because all this stuff going on in my family. I can't step out of the box because of what's going on with my husband, what's going on with my wife, what's going on with my kids, what's going on with my grandkids. I hear it all the time. All the time. If I've said it once, I've said it 10,000 times in 17 years here. I say to people, so are you going to let what's happening to someone else in your family stop your destiny? Well, it's just not as easy as that. Yeah, it is. According to Jesus, it is. Look, how many of you guys would say that you are in some way, even if it's remote, a part of a family? Have you noticed there's always stuff going on in families? You had a good day yesterday in your family? Enjoy it. Today might be different. You put human beings together and there's conflict. People don't see eye to eye. We've learned children are not robots. They don't do what we want them to do, what we think they should do, what we tell them to do. They seemingly have a mind of their own. So parents, what are we going to do? If we even have a situation so extreme that we have a child of complete rebellion, running from God, doing things that could end their life, does that mean now we're going to be in hold pattern? And we're not going to continue pursuing the progressive change and destiny of God for our lives? I know it's tough when a marriage is going through stuff. But if you're completely waiting on your marriage to get better before you pursue God's destiny for your life, you're not living in a realistic world. As far as the other family members that make good excuses, Aunt Ethel's hangnail, Cousin Bobby's boogers that are flowing out of his nose because he's got a bad head cold. I'm yet to understand how that we personalize so many things that are actually so distant from us. I'm not sure people come to me all the time and say, Pastor Scott, I know I need to move on and God's put this stuff in my life. And I know I need to let God do this stuff in my life. And then they'll go down this list of things that's going on, and I'm sitting there and I'm going, and what does that have to do with you? They'll speak to me about Aunt Bertha's hangnail as though they just had their left leg amputated. Their left leg, not Aunt Bertha's. Well, how are we computing this stuff? We build little boxes and we put ourselves inside. And God is saying, come on, follow me, follow me. I want to take you places in life. There's things you've never done that I want you to do. Things you've never seen that I want you to see. Things you've never been that I want you to be. Where'd we finish there? 59, 61? 61, we did do 61, didn't we? Look at this, 1 Corinthians 6:12. Let's just go ahead and stomp on some toes while we're here. Everything is permissible for me, but not everything is beneficial. Punch somebody and make sure they understand that. Say, you know it ain't all beneficial, right? Just because it's permissible doesn't mean it's beneficial. But not everything is beneficial. Everything is permissible for me, but I will not be mastered by anything. I will not be mastered by everything. So, okay, now let's up the percentages even more of the struggle of life to break out of the boxes and move on with God. I look at that passage and I see Paul saying, saying, don't let other things master you. Don't let other things take over and consume your life. How many here has ever battled an addiction before? How many has ever battled the addiction of recreation and amusement? I look at this and I see in a practical way, in the world we live in, I see addiction and recreation all over that passage. All over it. I see Paul coming and saying, look, there's a whole lot of things that are permissible. It's not heaven and hell issues. But it doesn't mean that it's prudent. It doesn't mean that it isn't going to have destruction all over it. It doesn't mean that it's not going to rob you from my destiny for your life, my purpose for you. And I look at an American church, and I see a church that battling addiction like crazy. You're a child of God and you're battling addiction. It's not a heaven and hell issue. It's a destiny issue. It's a fruit issue. It's a life issue. Nothing will put you in a smaller box than an addiction. You better enjoy that high when you got it, because that's all you're going to get. That's all you got. Anyone here besides me learn that you can't stay stoned forever? Some of us went broke trying. Now you got to steal to support the habit. Now you're not just an addict, you're a thief. Now you're lying to your parents and you're lying to the people you love that are closest to you because, no, I'm not doing any of that. So now the addiction has caused you to be a liar, and the addiction has caused you to become a thief. And it's completely changed who you really are. And it's a little box about that big that you live in, and there's no life in it, and the only time you're ever going to experience anything good is when you are buzzing really good. So enjoy it, because that's all you're going to get. But you don't have to stay there. There's life outside that little box. America's biggest addiction is recreation. It's not a drug, it's not alcohol. America's biggest addiction today is recreation. And we are completely consumed with having to recreate and amuse ourselves to the point that where we're losing our destiny. God's got incredible things for us to do that matter in the heavens and the earth, that will carry on beyond our generation, that will leave a legacy in the earth. And we're too busy being amused. Recreation. My daughter wanted a flat screen TV for her bedroom for Christmas. My wife came and asked me about it. I said, absolutely not. I'm working hard to break my daughter's addiction now. My daughter has an addiction. It's TV. And it doesn't matter how much I limit her, I can tell she's addicted because when the TV is on, she ain't home. Her body's there. I'm telling you, body snatchers done came and stole that child. I can be standing this far away saying, Hannah, come on, you need to brush your teeth. Or Hannah, come on, we need to eat. And she'll just sit there and her eyes are like glazed over. And she just stare. It's just like, it's like you take your hand like that. And I do that. And she'll just kind of like take my hand and push it away. And I finally say, Hannah, listen to me. Have you ever seen your child turn their head completely to you and their eyes stay exactly looking forward? So it's not just my kid. See, I thought I had a gifted child. And she's like, what, Daddy? What do you want? She honestly thinks I'm so stupid that if her face is turned towards me, that I have her full attention now. Of course, my wife, I don't know why she got our present together was an Xbox Connect, which is why I'm very tired today. Just wore out. It's good exercise if you're already in shape. But it's something we can do together as a family. And I'm bound to determine this year, I don't know who's going to break first in this thing. My daughter cannot find her destiny in God being raised as your classic American child, no matter how sociably acceptable it is. It just can't happen. And I know it's going to be a battle. And I can't tell you who's going to win. I know I want to win. All kinds of things the Bible talks about that's keeping us from breaking out of our box and moving on with God. even laziness, apathy. I just don't care. And of course, a lot of things lead to that. A lot of brokenness in life was just, I just don't care anymore. So I don't make that an insignificant item and just say, oh, you're just apathetic. Something usually leads to apathy. I don't poo-poo the things that happen in life that hurt and scar us and leave us bleeding. I'm a pastor. Trust me, if anybody in this room knows how common pain is in humanity, I know. I deal with it every day. Stories that will rock your world, stories that will have you in the floor crying for someone you don't even know. Heartache. People's lives being ripped apart. I don't know how to change any of that. I don't know how to fix that for everybody's life, because if we fix it today, it'll probably break again tomorrow. And so I'm trying to figure out, how do we cross over and how do we move on with God despite the things that are going on in our lives? How do we get rid of this mindset that yeah, I want to move on with God. I know God's got great plans for my life. And oh, I can't wait to get this fixed and this changed and this will be different so that I can move on. When you and I both know that's not realistic thinking. It's not. We move on with God despite our heartache, despite our grief, despite our loss, despite our disappointments, despite our failures. That's why God said through the prophet Isaiah, hey you, forget the former things, because I already have. Let's move on. Let's move on. See, our struggle isn't getting God to forgive and forget, is it? Our struggle is getting us to forgive ourselves and forget, so we can move on. Some of y'all are having a hard time moving on with God because you've been hurt somewhere in a past church. And this is the kind of place that has become a hospital for people to come in, kind of get lost in the crowd, and just let the Lord minister to you and nurse you back to health. And I understand that probably a church like this more than any church in town, because we're non-denominational and it seems it's kind of a safe place to go. There's not a lot of rules and regulations, and there's no hierarchy somewhere in some city 400 miles away saying, here's how you're going to have church. And this seems to be a place where you can come in and just kind of lose yourself for a little while and get restored back to health. Some of y'all came in here wounded. You know, wounded by a church, wounded by a pastor, wounded by a church experience. And now you're sitting here with all this experience and this walk with God from the past, that God's saying, come on, man, we've built stuff in you, man. We've laid foundations. Let's use this. Let's do this. But you're broken and you've been hurt and you've been disappointed. I was thinking the other day about this, and I was thinking about Malchus. You guys remember Malchus in the Garden of Gethsemane? You know, he's just doing his job. You know, he's working for the temple priests. He's a guard. They've dispatched him to go to this place where Judas is going to take him, and Judas is going to give him a signal. Whoever I kiss, that's the guy you need to arrest. And so Judas kisses Jesus, and the temple guards, no axe to grind. It's not personal for them. They're just doing what they're getting paid to do. And he goes and he to latch on to Jesus, and Peter loses it. Peter draws a sword out of somebody's sheath, and he cuts off Malchus' ear. And you understand the imagery here, right? He just lost his ability to hear. Get it? Ever been in church and someone's preaching a pretty good sermon, you can't hear a word because of all your hurts from churches going by? Because they're in a church setting, an apostle of God damaged you, hurt you. One of them terrorist preachers that Lynn Hiles talks about done messed you up. I know what it's like to be hurt in church. We exist here as a people at Cornerstone Family Church in great part because of my personal church scars. And I saw there was an option to say, forget this church thing, I want nothing else to do with it. Or to come to my God senses and say, that ain't the way it's supposed to be. And God said, yeah, so what do you want? You want to run, or you want to do it the right way, son? What do you want to do?
Amen.
My flesh said, well, run. My spirit said, we need to do it the right way. I know what it's like to be hurt, to be crushed. I know what it's like to be told to tear my keyboards down and don't come back as a worship leader. I know what it's like to be dismissed out of a church because of racial prejudice. I know what it's like to be hurt, to told that I'm not important and that my gifts are no longer needed. I know what it's like. And it's still not a good excuse to stop running, to stop changing, to stop progressing. 2012, it can be just another year, and someone asked me today what the catchphrase was going to be. I hadn't thought about it. I don't watch Christian TV much, and so I don't know what the catchphrases are this year. I don't know what rhymes with 12. So walked by Bernie out there, and he said something to me, and then just the Spirit of the Lord spoke to me. He said, get off the shelf in 2012. Well, that's as good as anything else I've heard. It's not deep, but it's pretty accurate. Get off the shelf in 2012. I wish 12 rhymed with box. We'd have someplace really cool to go here. There's no numbers that rhyme with box. I don't even have anything in the future to look forward to. I can't wait to the year, blah, 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 because that's going to rhyme with box, and I know where we're going that year. So in 2012, church, let's get out of the box. You individually, get out of your box. As a family, get out of your box. As a church, can we please get out of our box? I love 2011. It was a great spiritual growth year. I'm not good with watching a movie more than once. That's why I don't buy movies. Once I watch it once, I have no use for it again. This is the year. The Lord ever speak to you through a movie? Speaking of movies, He did me. This was the Lord's proclamation to me for you for 2012. The Lord wants to take you into a place where He's going to teach you that you can do something that you did not know you could do. And I wrote it down. Will the imaginable into existence. What have you been imagining? What have you been dreaming? What's your vision for life? This is a year the Lord's going to teach you how to will that thing into existence. There's nothing stronger God ever created than the human will. Everything in God's world hinges on one thing: human will. Well, I just want to know God's will for my life. God's will is that you will. That you will do everything that's in your heart to do. And if you will get out of your box and you will listen to the voice that says, follow me. I want to take you to a green pasture you haven't feasted on before. And we will get out of our boxes and our box. We're a big box full of little boxes here. If we can get out of these boxes, this year, God is going to teach you to do something supernatural. He's going to teach you that you can do some things you didn't know you could do. He's going to teach you how to will your dreams, your desires of heart, your vision, those things you've imagined. He's going to teach you how to will those things into existence. Nothing's impossible for those who believe. Won't you stand with me? Well, I know.